Welcome everybody to our webinar. This is the first webinar about telematics strategy. It is organized here in conjunction and cooperation with the company DriveQuant. And the theme of today's webinar is how to get ROI from connected vehicles programs. Who are your speakers today? Well, there's myself. Very nice to host you today. Frederick Burr, my name. I'm a head of digital at Zalis, and I was former VP at Zubi. Zubi, for those who are old enough and remember, was, or still is actually, a pioneer in the US market for connected car. Zalis is an expert services for companies facing rapid changes in complex environments. And with me, I have Philippe Moulin, who is the CEO of DriveQuant. DriveQuant is a leading connected vehicle platform in France and moving up in Europe as well. A quick summary here. We are going to first talk about DriveQuant. We are going to then look into the telematics markets, the trends per verticals, the ROI per verticals. We will have time for a few questions, I hope, from the audience. And then there's some free stuff also at the end. So without further ado, we'll go into telling you what is DriveQuant and what are they doing, what type of products and solution they are just giving on the market right now. And for this, I would like to pass the mic to Philippe Moulin, the CEO of DriveQuant. Philippe, how old is DriveQuant now?
So we started DriveQuant in February 2017. It was an excubation of a research institute called IFPEN, stands for New Energy. We had developed the technology that we are now proposing to our customers during a little more than between 3 to 5 years. Okay, so we're coming from the automotive industry, from a research and development background, and we are putting a lot of science in our technology to provide that to the ecosystem of mobility, of connected vehicles.
Great. And on the next slide, we can explain that a little further. And actually, I have to say, I was really impressed by your background and also by the backgrounds of other of your partners here in DriveQuant and colleagues. So the FPN, it's a Nobel Prize winning public institution in France, and it's also one of Europe's largest R&D. So it's like DriveQuant is having an R&D team 1,300 strong.
Yeah. IFPEN is well known in the sectors of oil and gas, of course, and in the transport sector. So IFPEN has been working with automotive manufacturer for a long time, since the beginning, probably. And it's now moving with the industry towards connected vehicles, towards mobility. Okay, and DriveQuant was created so from people working on embedded algorithms. Okay, so we were developing embedded algorithms for electronic control units, engine control strategies. And at one point, we realized that the technology that we were developing could be applied to the connected vehicles issues, approaches, and could be provided, could help building services that are provided to actors away from OEM, car manufacturers, and tier 1 supplier, which were traditionally customers of IFP. But now we are offering our technologies to all the actors of the mobility sectors, including insurers, repair and maintenance, mobility operators, which means leasers, car rentals, and ride sharing, car sharing.
Right. And we will talk about this a little later during the webinar. But I mean, will never get short about innovation with such a big institution behind you.
Yeah, really the purpose of building a separate companies, building DriveQuant from IFP Energie Nouvelle, it's to be able to address these markets, which require very short development timings, and at the same time benefit from research and development works that takes longer, much longer periods. So we take advantage of the benefits of using long-term research and development work, and at the same time being able to provide that with a very short
production cycle
to the industry that is in the digital, in connected vehicles, and that's evolving very fast.
Very good. One thing also that I noticed right away is that you're not quite the same as the others, and obviously everybody's saying that we're not the same as the competition, but you're not. First of all, there is this strong partnership with a large R&D center in Europe, and also the solution is adaptable to many different vehicles, right?
Yeah. So. One trend behind the evolution of the mobility industry is that the less and less people own their car, and there's a trend that toward less ownership of individual cars, and more the industry is changing toward mobility. So there's transport as a demand. There's also a trend linked with the digitalization globally of people of the car, and we are developing a technology that is compatible with that is able to collect data, to process data, and to provide services for any type of mobility. So when you move from point A to point B, you can use different types of transportation. And the technology we're developing is able to collect data throughout all your journey.
Right, and right now we can say that you are working on a big project with a very important player in the mobility as a service space.
Yeah, so probably the first sector we tried to address was the insurance industry, because the telematics is well developed in this sector, but our technology can be useful for any actor, and at the moment we're discussing a lot with actors that are in the what we call new mobility market, which means car sharing, car rental between individuals, ride sharing, because there's all these new operators have a need to optimize their service, to supervise their service and optimize it, and that is made possible with data. So you need to collect data, to interpret data, process data, to provide a better service to your customer.
Right.
And that's we are helping them with our technology. So.
That's right. And so talking about data, here we are on the next slide. Obviously, you have to extract the data first. And you are what we call device agnostic, right? Because you can collect data from smartphones, from dongles, from beacons. You don't mind, as long as the source is good, you know how to do it.
Yeah, the most important part is, and what we started with is in the center here. So our algorithms, the technology that we developed first, so the research and development work was put in algorithms that now are embedded in our server, and that can be accessed via an API. So our customers send us some data that is processed here. But in fact, the data can come from any type of device. So that they can come from telematics devices that can be black box, that can be embedded units in the car, that can be OBD devices or smartphone device. And because very early in our project we developed mobile applications, we developed also a knowledge on this type of technology, and we can now provide an SDK, so a software development kit, that allow our customers to transform their app into a telematics app. So the SDK takes in charge the data collection, send the data to our API, the data is processed and is sent back to the SDK, so to the mobile app. Okay, so that is something that is different from most of the telematics users. We can provide smartphone-based telematics.
Very good, yeah, which is a new trend also, because back in the day it was only the data was only collected through hardware.
Yeah, so for sure, the smartphones provide many advantages. One is it's much cheaper to deploy a mobile app than to send some of the devices. The other one is in the smartphone you can have access to many sensors. You have GPS, you have accelerometer, gyrometer, and these sensors have very good quality.
Exactly, yeah.
And the last advantage, which is very important also, is that the smartphone is an interface toward the user, toward the driver, and can be used to work on the interaction with the user. Okay. So for our customers, they can improve their customer relationship in the mobile application, in the technology we provide. And little by little, we've developed a white label app that now we can provide to our customer here. That is the first basis for the customer relationship, and allows our customer to build very quickly a smartphone telematics platform, and to develop a new offer around this kind of technology.
Okay, so that's an important question. Is that because you have all the pieces of the puzzle, right? You can basically solve the puzzle for an end customer very fast. And so, how fast is it? Like we're talking weeks here, months?
Yeah, in a few weeks. Well, basically, our mobile app in less than 2 weeks, you can transform that, brand it at the color of our customer, and transform that and make a proof of concept, basically.
Very good.
So that takes just a few days, maybe 2 weeks, and everything we developed, we had the approach that we help our customers take advantage of the technology and test some new offers, some marketing ideas very fast with this technology, because of course this technology will have a value if you are able to provide services and to integrate that in an offer.
Exactly, and this is the point of this webinar for you who are following us here, meaning that we're looking at ROI and fast ROI. So the next slide here is kind of the same as the first one, but there's one dimension that we have added, which is the physics part of it, the math part of it. Because it's true, when I was at Zubi, we had the software, we had the data play, we had all this down, but we're not very good at physics. When here you guys have really these in your background, And so you can, on top of the data that everybody has, you have modelization of some physics, right?
Yeah, sure. So the physics is really in our DNA. Everything, the algorithms we design are model based, which means we use information we have about how the behavior of the system we are looking at. So here it's a car. Okay, so and the idea is to be able to use as much as possible all the information you can get. So you have information from the data you collect, so information about the behavior of the car, but you have also information coming from vehicle characteristics or from external sources, external data that can be, for example, the weather. And the advantage of doing this is well illustrated with the example of what we do on the safety part, where we provide an indicator that is representative of the vehicle behavior at the level of the tire. So we transform the GPS data into information about the forces transmitted from the tire to the road. And because we know with weather data if the road is wet or dry, we have an indicator of the adherence between the road and the tire that takes into account the state of the road. And that's very powerful because for when you want to analyze the risk of the driving behavior, this information is fundamental.
Yes, it is, and I can see already because we have some tier one suppliers watching this webinar to a day, and I'm just going to wave at them here. And this is a very interesting information that in terms of tires, how to measure and how to predict skidding basically on a wet road. And that's quite unique, I would say. Thank you for that. Then after this, these are some example of apps that you guys have been developing with partners. Can you tell us? Obviously, everybody knows about the new one, which is the world's first pay-per-minute auto insurance, right, Philippe?
Yeah. So all these examples are in the insurance sector. The first one was developed with a startup that is working on peer-to-peer insurance. So we made an app. We used our white label app for developing their own app. The second one, Conduire, was made for Maif, for young driver during their the driving assistance period.
The early months.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm.
So the idea of this app is to have an objective assessment of the quality of driving of the young driver, and basically the feedback we had from the parents was that the app helped building good relationship between youngsters and parents. Okay, so it's better to have an objective assessment rather than fighting on subjective assessment. So that's very interesting to understand how these tools can be used. In this case, it is used by Maif to build a user relationship with people that are not yet insured and don't have their driving license yet. So it's really an interesting marketing tool for them. The third app here was built with Allianz and April Moto. So that's the first motorbike telematics app.
The first one in the world?
Well, to our knowledge,
okay.
It's the first one. The advantage of using smartphone telematics in this case is really obvious because you don't have OBD port on the motorbikes and you don't have embedded telematics. So smartphone telematics allow to develop a telematics insurance offer for this kind of vehicles that are at risk. So there's really an issue around the safety of motorbike riders.
Yes.
And the idea is really to help them, coach them help them reduce their risk.
Yeah, I think we all know about that risk. Is that bikers are at high risk of accident, much higher than drivers. And then there's another world premiere, which is the pay per minute.
The last one is pay per minute. So this is made possible again with a very light technology in terms of cost, which is smartphone telematics. So we use a beacon in this case to connect the smartphone app with the car. So the beacon is in the car, in the vehicle. And this technology approach allows to measure very accurately the time that he spent in the car and the time during which the vehicle is driven. So it's really pay per minute, and this is well adapted for the new types of mobility we're seeing, like usage-based mobility. This is usage-based insurance, and this is in phase with the developments we see in the insurance industry, where the insurer propose offers, very small offers for a very small act. Like when you buy something on Amazon,
right,
you can have an insurance for this. Here, it's really for every minute you drive, you can have an insurance.
Right,
and that's something new.
And I know we have insurers on the call today as well. Feel free to ask us the question at the end or by email. So now we're talking about, and I think DriveQuant, Philippe and his team, they have a great knowledge about telematics. They are based in France. Their target is Europe and the world as well. And we see that quickly. We can see that the estimated growth in market is basically both in Europe and in the US for now. And in Europe, we have countries like Germany, the UK, France, and Russia and Italy who are leading the way up. Per verticals, and I know some of you already have asked us questions about this. So you have one axis, which is growth, the high demand of telematics related services, and then you have the demand of or the production of offer. On this line here, what we're seeing is that historically OEMs, car makers, were always high demand for telematics products, and we will go into the details after that. Then the tier one suppliers, because they're shadowing what the OEMs are doing anyway, they need to be in phase with that. A newcomer is all the mobility services. Philippe alluded to that, the mobility as a service. Which is right now looking at telematics and making a lot of tests and POCs, right?
Yeah, sure. So something we can say is that OEMs, the differences between these verticals tend to be much blurred than they were before. For example, OEMs now are developing mobility services.
True.
So these trends are very interesting because we can see that the whole industry is under transformation, and this transformation will affect all the actors. So insurers can also provide mobility services. Mobility service operators can provide auto insurance and fleet management. And the technology we are providing, which is data production technology, will be useful for all of these actors and can provide some value to all of them on a common technology basis.
And so at the lower end of the demand, we have roadside assistance, dealerships. Myself, with Zubi, we had a lot of dealings with them in the US, and for some reason, it was not probably the greatest match. Dealerships are very related to OEMs, obviously, so they look up to the OEMs for solutions and probably not to other players. and parking lot, because more and more they're interested into measuring their capacity, their yield, and telematics can help them do that. In terms of offer hardware, so this is the other side of the curve here. Hardware, software, and connectivity were the three players. Obviously, the data is what what everybody wants, what everybody is looking at. But right now, what we're seeing is the data. Sometimes there's a lot of data, but the quality is not always there. And the last on the ladder is content. More and more, we need to produce contextual content based on the driving, based on the event happening when we are monitoring a vehicle or we're tracking a vehicle, and this content is not always has the best quality, or the offer is not quite there yet. After that, what we have here, it's interesting. It's the trends in OEMs. So I'm not going to read the slide here, but you see that there's a mark, there is a central mark marking the today spot here, and we see that the trends in OEMs went from the navigation system, the infotainment. By the way, there are news that we had Google powering the Renault, Nissan, Mitsubishi alliance for the infotainment system, for the OS embedded in the car. So that's it's still a very, very hot trend. And as Philippe was saying, the lines are blurring between the demand, and it's true that OEMs now is looking more and more ride sharing as as a way to maybe not sell more cars, but probably have more cars used than if they were just sold. And then more and more, obviously, they're going into predictive maintenance and engagement with the end user. The trends in mobility as a service, it started as a tracking and a routing service, the engagement, the safety, and more, it has to be embedded in a platform, in an application that really tracks the person going from one way of transportation to the other, and eventually we'll go probably in a beautiful sunny future where all the vehicles will be self-driving and autonomous. Now to UBI, so we are going to dive here a little bit more. We talked about UBI insurance programs, telematics-driven programs. Scoring was, big on the list. They went away from dongle-related tracking. Now they are looking at mobile telematics, which is why DriveQuant is very well placed in this market. And the model right now they are developing is a pay-as-you-go type of model. And in the future, they're going into crash detection, claims fulfillment, and engagement with the end user. Do you see any other trend happening on this timeline, Philippe?
Well, as I said before, there's connections that are made between insurers, OEMs, mobility service providers, and all of them, they have an appetite for data, and for all of them, smartphone-based telematics is very interesting because smartphone help them work on the user relationship, also on engagement. And in your graph before, when you had content, also, so I think we all agree for the time being the content provided by the telematics offers are really poor, and we all need to work on this. The smartphone is a very, very interesting tool to provide more content because it's so close to the user.
And they already use it as a content providing tool.
Yeah, so it's a very good device to provide content and to develop new content. And that will help the OEMs to build more to improve their user relationship after the vehicle is sold. So not so long ago, the OEMs lost their user relationship once the vehicle is sold. And now with data, connectivity, and smartphones, they have the opportunity to keep a relationship well after that. It is true also for the mobility provider and for the insurers. So when you don't have telematics, every time you have an interaction with your insurer, it's a bad news, basically.
Right, yeah.
And the smartphone is the opportunity to provide much richer interaction and to interact and good news also.
Right, sharing the good news.
Yeah, and that's very interesting for them. And at the same time, the smartphone can provide more data and can help the insurer better understand the usage of the car, the behavior of the user, and improve the understanding of his risk and improve its offer.
Very good. Fleet operators. Yeah, so you can see on our slide here, there's the old bumper sticker, the how's my driving bumper sticker, right? And the answer is 1-800 I don't care. But now with telematics, fleet operators, fleet managers have a very, very powerful tool. And so it evolved from just the tracking of the assets to fuel savings, obviously, that went kind of together. Safety monitoring, and now we have this new trend. And I know that DriveQuant is involved, has a lot of projects going for coaching and training. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah. So the idea when you want to save fuel on fleets, for sure the driver is very important. It's the best lever to improve things. And coaching is very important, coaching and training. And telematics provide as an advantage that with the processing of data, you have the information whether the coaching is efficient, is effective, and how long that lasts. And it is true also for smartphone-based telematics, which has the advantage of being low cost and low support. You can use the smartphone to monitor the driver behavior, to identify which driver needs a coaching, a training, and then to measure how long the coaching is efficient, and maybe to trigger a new coaching session.
And do you think, Philippe, that telematics will change this drivers training forever?
Yeah, the smartphone will not replace the coach or the training session in itself. It's really a tool that helps in the process. It's a tool that helps to identify which driver needs some training, and then to check that the ROI of the training is correct. So it's an additional tool. And the driver behind the need to coach the people. Before it was really the fuel savings. Now what we see is that the safety is more and more important. We know that more than half the deaths at work in France are related to road accidents.
Oh, I think it's Europe as well. It could be.
I think so in Europe. And so there are road accidents. So the road safety is a major issue for all the companies that have a fleet. And the coaching training now is really focused on improving the safety of the people, the safety of the salaries of the companies.
Right. And here, on this timeline, the future, if you project this timeline to the future, you see that emission control is going to be more and more enforced. It's a European law.
Yeah, it's another trend. So what we see now is there's more and more conscience about pollutant emissions. And there's going to be legislation at the state, maybe of Europe, but more probably at the state of cities. We have seen that in Paris there has been some decisions, in other cities also in Germany, in the UK. And the companies will be the first affected by this legislation.
Right.
Because it's not acceptable anymore that trucks in the cities emit a lot of pollutant emissions, because there's an issue for all the inhabitants of the city.
Yeah, the health of everybody. Yeah.
So this is coming, so it's important now to have tools that are able to estimate, to measure pollutant emissions, and provide tools to reduce that, to improve that. And that comes also with training, coaching.
Yes, of course, and measuring. Now, a point that I know everybody's impatient of going here because where's the beef, right? What's the ROI on all those verticals? So we're not going to do a deep dive, I would say, on that, but it's based on my own experience in the US and in France, and Philippe's experience heading DriveQuant here in France and Europe. Obviously, the first case is UBI. Why? Well, because insurance companies, wanted to create new products, put new services, innovative services on the market, and wanted to make more sales. It is true that Progressive in the US, had this program, and they made more sales out of it by differentiating the product and by also pricing contextually based on your score. Now, in France, you cannot do that, Philippe, right? Because you cannot price insurance according to someone's profile or behavior.
In France, there's a high level of mutualization. I'm not sure the word is correct in English.
Right, yeah, no, it's the same word, yeah.
The risk is shared between all the insurees of an insurer. But it is possible to have some individualization of the premium, and there has been some tries. Allianz and AXA have launched some telematics offers, so UBI. It's less in the culture than in the UK or the US, but we see that it is coming. Maybe it's coming slow, but generally the insurers are people that who like data and like understanding the risks based on data. Telematics provide more data, so probably it's something that is going to be more developed in the future.
Right, and for the fleet ROI, so we're not going to read all the steps up going to all the way to innovation, but we see that both have similarities. Data, you mentioned, and data are yielding innovation, obviously, data-based products and services. But for fleet, it's different because they started not with more sales, obviously, but with savings. And as you mentioned in the previous slide, to reduce the risk and to be a responsible corporation and to manage things more efficiently. So this is in a nutshell the ROI for two big verticals, UBI and fleet. And we will probably end this by giving you a little bit of diving a little deeper, I would say, into challenges and contests that DriveQuant is organizing right now with companies. It is my understanding that obviously who is interested by this service or this product, it's corporate fleet operators, managers, their drivers, and the HR department, because some of them would like to know the behavior of their employees on the road. Right now, what is DriveQuant? I mean, other are offering that type of service, but DriveQuant really offers a turnkey operation, right? In terms of the ease of use, ease of of understanding the app, and also ease of gathering the data, analyzing it, and giving back to the company some very interesting data. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, so we again, the smartphone technology is very interesting for this because it's very easy to distribute a mobile application. We've integrated in our white label app or in our own app mechanisms to organize challenges. We organized maybe more than 10 challenges since we started to work on this type of things. So we have now an experience on what you can do and what you should not do with changes. And now we have something that works really well. So it takes only a few weeks to set up an app, distribute it, and organize the change. So we are doing one in the event that is coming.
Yeah, we're going to talk about this at the end, yes.
And this is what's interesting in changes is that it's very efficient to onboard people, to make them aware of road safety issues, of fuel saving issues, pollutant emission saving issues, and to communicate on this type of topics in a way that is positive. Because most often these issues are not fun, and it's difficult to motivate people.
Right.
When you do a change, that's easier.
And best of all, it's not a big investment for a company. And I know that in some cases it can be paid by the training budget, which has to be spent.